not until my early 20s. It totally lived up to my visions as a kid of like these larger than life guys. You walk onto the field and you see that it's a game of giants. And it felt like I was, 6, 7, 8 years old again, watching these. I think that's the best phrase, larger than life players. And just the NFL season in general was just like the time of year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We're almost there.
Yeah, we're almost there. That's why we're kind of romanticizing it as we build up to it. But for you, and now that you aren't living near your father, is it still that bond with you guys with the Raiders where you're going back? I'm sure now on the phone, right? You're probably texting back and forth during games.
Yes, we call, we text, we talk about the game beforehand, we talk about the game afterwards, we send each other links. We talk about highlights. We talk about what was good, what was bad. So yeah, that continue between August, September, and January continues to be, well, hopefully January. It continues to be just one of our top points of communication. One of our top subjects. So
now we're going into what many of us believe, and this is not just being the fanboy, but. We're going into, I think, what's going to be another really great era of Raiders football, and a lot of that has to do with the organization moving to Las Vegas, but also the moves they've made with hiring John Gruden and the roster. Now, when you heard that John Gruden was coming back, what did you feel? Like, what was your thoughts?
Oh, I was so excited. I called my dad. I called my husband. I was over the moon. I just think he's going to be so good for them. And I, you have the Chucky memories of the faces of him. Like, it's a radio show, but some of you can still see us where he would like do the whole,
the smirk.
The smirk. But the top thing I can think of that excites me is the discipline, because I think he does nurture the relationship with the guys, but there's still that level of you're the boss. Yeah. And I think that's something that has been needed. I think we have had a lot of good coaches, but maybe that element was missing a little bit. So I think that's something that's, already coming into play, and that excites me more than anything, getting the discipline in, because I think the talent is there.
Oh, yeah. No, and I think they've made
stability, I think, is going to be a huge factor, having Gruden here for the team itself. They haven't had a tenured coach since John Madden. I mean, think about that. They haven't had a coach that lasted that long since John Madden, who stopped coaching in 78.
Yeah.
This is the year I was born. I mean, that's how far back we go.
See, we were talking before we went on there, because my classmates had our 30th high school reunion last night down in San Diego County, and I was telling them that made me feel old. Matt keeps saying things that make me feel older.
You have like 9 years on me, man.
I know, but it's 9 years, man. It's 9 years.
Still the same generation. I'm a 77 baby.
Oh, okay.
So we're all right there.
You 70s. I remember 1977. That's scary. That's the year Elvis died, so that's the whole.
I remember videos from 77.
You remember videos?
Yeah, old grainy footage of
nice
times in the past.
I bet you could name some baseball from 77.
No.
Yankees and the Royals.
I don't know
ALCS.
anything about the Yankees, man. West Coast here. Don't mess with the Yankees.
So Carlos, so watching the Raiders now, we talked about you were a longtime meteorologist on Channel 13,
right?
And you had to work weekends, and so you had some Sundays off. I remember talking to you last season. You said, "Oh, I got 1 or 2 Sundays off." I think you had, but when doing that, and do you have a routine though when you're not working and you get to sit down and watch the Raiders on television? Do you have a routine? Is there anything that you do besides calling your dad and texting with your dad? What else do you do? Do you have anything, or is it just sort of like a relaxing thing for you?
Well, the day is definitely planned around the game. Sundays are for people that are runners. It's a big running day. But depending on what time the game is, then that's when I schedule my run. Meals are scheduled around it, everything like that. But yeah, it's just kind of setting in, checking online what's going on, seeing any pregame shows, and yeah, texting and calling with Dad.
Now the question is, and we'll talk about this because we had back in March, our website ran a story about the pricing of the PSLs. I'm a little saucy about it today because the RJ did a story 4 days ago, and they got all this triumphant, like they were walking in waving, kind of the Queen wave when we ran the story. But the tickets are going to be expensive for the VIP sections and all that. They talked about that. Are you and your husband going to get season tickets? Have you decided yet?
It depends on
the price.
On the PSL. Yeah, it depends on. I was one of the ones that gave the deposit. Unsure of whether I'd be able to actually purchase the tickets because it's expensive.
It is.
Yeah, you're buying the right to buy a ticket.
Yes, it's. Well, we're going to go to the phones now. We have one of our listeners and readers over on silverandblacktoday.com, Anthony. Anthony, what's up, man? What are you doing today?
Sitting here out on the porch, listening to you fellas, just like I do every Sunday.
All right, I appreciate that, man. What do you got on your mind?
All right, well, last year one of the hardest things for me watching Raider football was knowing exactly what we were going to do. I play a lot of John Madden football, and even I think I could have called the plays better than Todd Downing. So I guess my question to you is, what do you think Greg Olsen and Paul Guenther are going to bring as far as schemes go? We're going to play more cover, more man on defense. Obviously, we're going to be more aggressive, hopefully throw out of the backfield a little more. But I'm just kind of curious what you guys think we're going, where we're going with that. It was real dismal last year. Like I said, I could almost call the plays myself, and I'm not that good. So,
the biggest problem with the biggest problem with Downing last year was predictability. I think he mentioned being able to call the plays better than Downing did. Downing was so predictable. It was a lot of throw long on first down, put yourself in a hole on second down, and then try to pick up a first by running the ball on third down when it's 3rd and 8.
Yes.
I mean, that was kind of the situation they put themselves in a lot last year. I think you're going to get a lot more creativity, especially with Gruden being there, more so than Olsen being there. I think Olsen helps, but the creativity that John Gruden brings in his playbook, I think, is key. And Derek Carr he's going to excel in a system like this. I think you're going to see a lot of what you saw out of Rich Gannon because they have similar skill sets in that they're both very athletic quarterbacks, accurate arms, great on the deep ball, but they can get out and run when they need to. They're not necessarily running quarterbacks. They're not Michael Vick style quarterbacks, but they can get out and move when they need to. Defensively, you're going to see aggression. That's a word that we've thrown around the show for the last probably 2 months now when talking about this defense with Paul Guenther coming in. You mentioned man coverage. You're going to see a lot more of that.
As far as me watching the games. But I agree. I think that creativity, mixing it up, that's what we're going to see a lot more of, which is so needed.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be much, much different, and that's something that I know all Raider fans are going to be excited about. It's time to step aside, pay some bills, and when we come back, the Hacksaw joins us. Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, sports radio legend, play-by-play man in the NFL. We'll talk Raiders, Chargers, relocation. You're listening to Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m.
Flag Show.
Cliff Branch, still fast today. We talked about it last week. We got to wear his Super Bowl rings. And Carla, he visited you in the TV studio. You got to wear his Super Bowl ring as well.
I did. Yeah, it looks like a boxing picture because we're both going like this, but I'm actually sporting the rings. I was so excited. I think there were like a ton of people in the studio, but the people that were with him could tell that I was like the big Raiders fan because I was like totally like starstruck.
Yeah, and I'm sure your dad loved that picture too.
Yes.
That's gotta love it.
Yeah, he called me and he's like, "What?" And I told the Morning Blend people, of course I'm not there anymore, but I told them whenever there's a Raider coming on, y'all have to let me know in advance.
Well, we'll take care of you here. We'll make sure. All right, we're going to go back out on the phone line now. And so growing up in San Diego, I had two heroes. I mean, really, seriously. Tony Gwynn, God rest his soul. Still sad to this day that he's gone. And the other one was a gentleman we have on the phone because I always loved radio. Used to fall asleep with the transistor radio on my pillow listening to baseball games. And then as I got a little older, this man helped really invent the modern version of sports talk radio. And that, of course, is Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. Lee, how you doing, my man?
Good morning, Scott. Yeah, blame me for what Sports Talk Radio has become. Thank you very much. No, thank you for the compliment. I've been here 30 years in Southern California doing Sports Talk Radio and obviously NFL play-by-play, and have had a tremendous run. It's a very different landscape right now. It's fabulous. I was, as you're well aware, I was kind of the first piece of Sports Talk Radio in Southern California when we launched the historical Extra Sports 690. We were the third station in the country, behind WFAN in New York and WIP Philadelphia, and I didn't know whether it would work, and it turned out to be a phenomenal move by our ownership, and I was given freedom to do a lot of creative stuff, and I did it, and have loved every minute of Sports Talk Radio. A little bit different landscape now, a little bit different rules, and an awful lot of stations on the air, but it's fabulous for the sports fan. So I say thank you for your compliment.
Well, no, I appreciate it and everything you've done for all of us. And yeah, you know, it's weird. Things have changed a lot, and things have changed obviously in two big markets in California. Of course, San Diego and Oakland. We are a Raider-centric show with the Raiders coming to Las Vegas. But we know, of course, about the Chargers leaving San Diego. You were the Chargers play-by-play announcer in their only Super Bowl. Tell us what it's like now. I mean, there's still a lot of, really raw nerves and animosity amongst fans and the media there around the Chargers. What's the current state of that? And are Charger fans starting to maybe relax a little and going to root for the team even though they're in Los Angeles, or what's going on?
The word is bitterness. The word is apathy. That's the emotion in the community in San Diego right now. It's probably going to be a little bit different in Oakland because the Raiders had moved once and then moved back, and now they're going to move again. But it's a different relationship, I think, that fans in the Bay Area have with the Raider brand. This was San Diego's franchise. This was a very successfully supported San Diego franchise through a lot of bad years. And when ownership yanked this franchise out of here, it left a lasting bitterness that I don't think will ever go away. That being said, we've also got now significant apathy. Fans here have turned their back on the National Football League. And I never thought I'd ever see that happen, Scott. TV ratings this past year in the San Diego market for Charger games was down 47%.
Wow.
47%. And overall, for all NFL games in the TV market, all the different network games that are pumped in here, TV ratings were down 42%. So fans have turned their back on the product, and they've obviously never forgiven the ownership for what it did to the city of San Diego. I think if you go out in the street and you ask the fans, do you root for the Chargers? They say, well, I root for Phillip Rivers to win. I never want the franchise to win because of what the Spanos family did to 55 years of heritage in this market. So that's the answer as to where we are right now.
Lee, let me ask you a question. This is Matt here. There's a lot of uncertainty surrounding the 2019 season when it comes to where the Raiders are actually going to play, and rumored destinations, obviously San Antonio because they were rumored before they ever came to Vegas, and then San Diego because Qualcomm is still there. What would the tone of the city be like if the Raiders came in for one season to play in Qualcomm? Would there be, like you just mentioned, just this kind of disdain for the NFL in general, do you think you would see Chargers fans or former Chargers fans kind of rally around the Raiders just to kind of, throw the finger at the Spanos family and the Chargers organization altogether?
Well, I think it's a tremendous question, and I've thought about this all along. I posed that question to the mayor, Kevin Faulconer, here. Would you go after the Raiders to come here on an interim basis? But he's never responded to that question. I don't know how the community would react right now because it is historically a really bad rivalry. Historically, I'm sorry, you wear silver and black down here, you might not be accepted very well. And, that being said, let's also be honest, it's an NFL franchise and a chance to enjoy the product. And that being said, we do know the Raider Nation travels. They'd go anywhere, including the moon, to go see Raider games. So I think that they'd get big crowds. Whether they'd sell out the stadium in a combo of transferred Raider fans and people with a lot of animosity towards the Spanoses, I think that's open to debate. I don't understand the city of Oakland. I know there's going to be huge bitterness over the transfer of the franchise, but yet, from an economic standpoint, why would you not want to have a business in the Oakland Coliseum for at least that last final season? Because that's a revenue producer for your community.
Right.
You can't control the business of the NFL. The city can't control what Mark Davis felt he had to do for the long-term health of the franchise in a brand-new market. But again, for your population, why would you not want to have that franchise at least play that final year there? So we'll see. Things can change going forward, and we'll see what the 2018 season brings and whether cooler heads will prevail and the Raiders will be allowed to play there in 2019. Coming here, I think it's a long shot because I just don't get any sense at all the mayor, city council has made any contact at all with the Raiders about the potential of coming here for an interim season.
And Lee, one of the things too that I find remarkable, maybe now that I'm outside San Diego, being out here in the desert, being in Las Vegas, I've noted in looking at the differences between the Chargers and the Raiders and their moves. The Chargers are going to be tenants in a stadium. The Raiders got money from a tourism tax in the state of Nevada to the tune of $750 million. The animosity solely directed on the Spanos family and not Los Angeles? Because what we see here is a little bit of both. We see, of course, Raider fans in the Bay Area hate Mark Davis for leaving, even though he had no choice in my view. But secondarily, they also really, really viciously attack Las Vegas. Are you seeing that with L.A. too, or is it the typical San Diego-L.A. rivalry that's always been there?
Well, I'll give you just a brief capsule of history. The Spanos family would tell you that we tried for 15 years to build a stadium in San Diego. I will tell you, because I was here through this entire process, including when I was the voice of the Chargers, all they did was print a brochure, put a picture of Snazzy Stadium on the front of the brochure, and then give it to the mayor and say, this is what we need, this is what we want, build it, pay for it, and by the way, then give it to us. That's how they approached negotiating a new stadium. They'd never wanted to put their own money into any facility. The only shred of truth about the Spanos family that we tried for 15 years is we had really poor city leadership here. We had bad mayors. We had all types of corruption. We had a lot of infrastructure problems in the city of San Diego. You tell me, starting with 9/11 in 2001, with the tragedy of 9/11, collapse of the global economy, California near bankruptcy, San Diego near bankruptcy because of a pension scandal, and then the collapse of the real estate industry from 2001 to 2013. How does anybody get anything done in the state of California? You can't.
You can't.
It was not until we had the current mayor, Kevin Faulconer, come in with the regrowth of the economy. Faulconer put together a financing plan for the first time in the 30 years I've been here, first time ever, that would have city money, county money, NFL money, Spanos money. They put together what I thought was a very viable plan to build a new stadium at Qualcomm's site, which is really the only legitimate place to build a new stadium, not downtown on a postage stamp next to the baseball stadium. That was the first time ever. They put a plan together, and I think it would have been approved by the voters, and Spanos refused to come to the negotiating table. Flat out refused. And it leads me to believe in my heart that over the last 3 years, Spanos' only end game was to take the franchise to L.A., drive the value back up, and maybe 3 years from this morning, if we're still talking, doing this talk show, the franchise would have been put up for sale. I think that was the end game.
It's an investment.
San Diego, guys, is different than Oakland. Oakland is economically depressed. It's a really tough situation for the leadership of Oakland because there's so many infrastructure problems in the city in terms of how do you finance a stadium there. San Diego's a little bit different. San Diego, though, is not your typical NFL city. We don't have hardly any Fortune 500 companies here. This is not Dallas, where Jerry Jones can snap his fingers and industry steps up, or Philadelphia or Cleveland, where they've gotten new stadiums built. So,
Lee, do you think there was any actual validity in him wanting to build a stadium downtown, or do you think that was just kind of him throwing it out there, like, see, look, I tried, now let me get to L.A.?
Yeah, it was a scam. At the last. I thought the whole thing was bogus to begin with. And I've never thought they were good owners. I never thought they were good business people. They've had only, I think, 12 winning seasons in 34 years in San Diego with the ownership of that franchise. I mean, that's their trophy, that they own the franchise, but you lose every season, and now you've moved the franchise. I think my gut feel was that the NFL is all about building on big land where you've got the ability to expand your business entity around your franchise. I mean, look at what Patriot Place has become. It's just not a football stadium. Patriot Place
it's a massive complex.
It's a massive business complex. That's the new model. And instead, the Spanos came back at the last minute and said, well, we'll build on this piece of real estate, this postage stamp-sized piece of real estate next to Petco Park. Well, how do you grow that? There's no place to grow. So.
Well, and you're right. And so now both Oakland, who couldn't get anything done for the reasons you talked about, and San Diego are without a team. Lee, listen, we got to step aside for a break. We really appreciate you having you on, and we will have you on again. Take care, my man.
Hey, let's do something before the season starts. Glad to talk to you anytime.
We will. Sure. Lee Hacksaw Hamilton here on Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Help us talk the Silver and Black. Call us at 702-889-5978. Here's Matt Gutierrez and your host, Scott Gulbranson, on CBS Sports Radio 1140 AM.
Welcome back, Las Vegas, Silver and Black, today on CBS Sports Radio 1140 AM. Please let the humidity stop. I lived in Kansas City for 4 years. I was born in the Midwest. I don't like the humidity.
We're such babies, though.
We are babies.
I told you last week I was in New Orleans in September a couple years ago, and it felt like the sky was sitting on top of me. This is so mild compared to that. We're just not used to it. We're such babies around here about humidity.
You can wait a month and a half, and it'll go away. I promise.
Well, and again, I want to thank Lee Hacksaw Hamilton for coming on. And we could talk to Lee for, I think, a 6-hour show with nonstop. Lee has so much knowledge in what he talked about San Diego and Oakland and the situations being different. It really is. And Carl, even you were talking about you went with your husband the last year the Chargers were, or your husband went down.
Right.
The last year the Chargers were there for a Dolphins game. What was his experience like in San Diego?
He just said by far it was just way more Dolphins fans than San Diego fans, which I know happens when the Raiders play them. And it's great if you're a Dolphins fan, if you're an Oakland fan, but it is a little sad for the LA Chargers. It's still weird saying it.
I know. And you know what? National broadcasters still say San Diego all the time.
I say it all the time.
Because, it's been like that, right, since 1963. So, but what's interesting, too, is they're seeing the same thing happen in Los Angeles, which is Raider fans love the fact that the Raider fans in L.A., who grew up with the Raiders in Los Angeles, love the Chargers being there because that means the Raiders are coming once a year.
Right.
And they call it a blackout because they go out and they take over the stadium, just like they did in San Diego really the last 8 or 10 years. And so the Chargers, we had L.A. Daily News reporter, columnist, Vinny Bonsignore on last week. Was it last week or the week before? Yeah,
last week.
I can't. It's starting to come together. But Vinny talked about how it's going to take the Chargers generations to develop fans like they did in San Diego. But still, Matt, when you don't win, it's hard. I mean, Lee said 12 of 34 years that they have had a winning season.
You said generations. My first thought was they have to start winning throughout those generations
and they might
for them to matter at all.
Yeah.
And they will this year, but it's not going to matter this year as far as the LA fan base goes because the Rams are going to be, I think, one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the NFL, definitely in the NFC. And the Raiders play in LA twice this season, once in preseason in the Coliseum for the first time since '94, and then they play in L.A. against the Chargers. And if you think you're going to see more Rams and Chargers fans at either of those games, you're crazy. The Raider fans are going to take over the Coliseum for a preseason game. It's going to be nothing but silver and black, and that town will always be associated with the Raiders because of just that pop culture thing that came through back in the 80s when they jumped into L.A., won a Super Bowl immediately. The way NWO took to the silver and black and made that such a huge thing. Or NWO. Geez, I went to wrestling.
I was wondering if that's what he meant.
Yeah, NWO. I'm still in wrestling
That's okay,
mode.
man.
But I mean, it's just it's such a huge part of the fandom in Los Angeles is being a Raiders fan and wearing those colors. And I think that's what you're going to see for a long time, especially since we're only 250 miles away from LA.
Oh, yeah.
It's
now
easy.
Carla, your dad, you said Oakland, right? So he's from Oakland, lived in Oakland, and then the Raiders moved to LA. You grew up mostly with the Raiders in LA.
Right.
And so when they moved back, I'm sure your dad was sort of excited for you. What was that like?
Yeah, he was really excited. And even now, he's excited that they're coming here because I live here and, he'll get to experience, if not through me or by being here and visiting me. But he's still a little weird about it.
Yeah.
If I ask him about, the Las Vegas Raiders, he's still like, he will become more enthusiastic over time, but he grew up with the Oakland Raiders.
I get that. That because if they were going anywhere else, I would be disappointed in the fact that they were moving. Even if it was L.A., when they were going to move to L.A. with the Chargers and share a stadium, my thought was, oh man, they belong in Oakland. They should stay in Oakland, even though L.A.'s closer. I don't want to see them go, but they're coming here.
Yeah,
I mean, it's hometown. How can you be disappointed about that? Anywhere else, maybe, but. Coming here.
Now, the Raiders, Carla, will be playing in a dome here.
Yes.
But for those readers out there and viewers and listeners that have pinged me over the last 2 days, because I've been talking about monsoons on Twitter, tell people real quickly, bring out the meteorologist in that Raider fan sitting there. What are monsoons so people can understand?
So They're technically not monsoons. It's a monsoon season.
Gotcha.
And whereas people typically call them monsoons, I think that's what the storms are called. So the monsoon is a change in the weather pattern. Here we normally get winds out of the southwest. They're very drying. And so the winds start coming out of the south and southeast. So that brings in all the moisture, which supplies the fuel for storms. So it's a change in the wind pattern, actually, and it's a monsoon season that brings showers and thunderstorms.
So that's the monsoonal flow.
Correct.
Is that correct? Do I have that right? Ooh.
Look at you
I got
studying up, man.
Hey.
That monsoonal flow.
Right.
You're
And
ready for the green screen.
And I just love that you're here on the radio, and of course we are streaming, but you're doing your TV hands. I love that.
I am.
It just
I'm like,
happens, right?
Get me a green screen already.
So then they're just thunderstorms then.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not really it's just okay, gotcha. So for those folks out there who don't live in Las Vegas, who are going to come here for Raider games, we don't have them in August though, right? It's really maybe a little bit in August.
There's still some in August. The season really starts sort of waning in September.
Okay.
But our biggest monsoon months are July and August. But by far during football season, yeah, they're gone.
Yeah, they're gone.
But people think that we get most of our rain here in Las Vegas from the monsoon. We actually get it in the winter.
Yeah.
That's where most of our rain comes in. So
That's why I always remember December, January, and February kind of being wet.
yeah.
And where we get the water that we actually need. Now, for those folks, one of the things we also hear about the criticisms of the Raiders coming to Las Vegas is the weather. Oh, it's so damn hot. Meanwhile, they're going to be up in Napa for training camp here in 11 days, and it gets 100 degrees there. It's more humid because you're in the middle of wine country and you have more vegetation. Is the weather here, because it's desert and people think of it as being so hot and they see these 110 temperatures, is that overblown when you look at other areas of the country who have humidity and high temperature?
Well, I mean, Phoenix has a team, and it's
yeah.
like 5 to 10 degrees hotter there all summer and all year. So I don't see like why it's even an issue.
Yeah.
Nobody pays attention to Phoenix. Honestly, I mean that's kind of. I
I
feel like
do.
they just kind of.
I have a child who lives there,
Well,
so
I mean, take it to hockey real quick, and
Yeah.
everybody said, the desert market. How can you put a team out there when there's been a team in Phoenix for 20 years?
I know it makes no sense, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the tinfoil hat folks in
favorites.
Oakland, and we'll get Carla in this. She's probably like, oh, what are these guys going to get me into? But yeah, it's Las Vegas and the weather. It is fantastic. It is dry. It's a dry heat. It is dry. That's why I like it, because you know what? Outside of having to use a lot of lotion and drink a lot of water.
All the time.
All the time. It's fantastic. I was on my college tour because I went to UNLV, and it was as I was coming into school, and we were on a walking tour, and it was hot. Had a girl pass out because they told her to hydrate, and she didn't. And I was like, that day I learned I got to drink water.
Hydrated with beer. That's usually the mistake.
Oh, boy. All right. Well, that's the end of our first hour here on Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio 1140 a.m. We'll be back after this to talk more Raider football.
The most in-depth coverage of the Silver and Black as they set their sights on Las Vegas for 2020. Live from the CBS Sports Radio 1140 studios, it's Silver and Black today. Join the conversation by calling 702-889-5978. Now, here's Scott Gulbransen and Matt Gutierrez.
Welcome back. Hour number 2. You've made it. You made it through hour number 1. Hopefully you got your coffee. You're up. You're awake.
Picture's awesome.
Or your protein shake.
Your protein shake. See, Carla's got her protein.
grabbed.
That's right. Carla Welga's here. She's got her protein shake. Matt brought in donuts. I was just telling Carla how I'm trying to get back and lose some weights, and you bring in donuts.
Yeah, I brought in donuts.
Oh, man. The bacon.
My daughter's been begging for the pink box donuts.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we've never been. So I stopped by this morning, grabbed a couple boxes, one for us and then one for them. And she doesn't know yet. I don't know if she's listening, but donuts are coming home, so she'll be excited.
I don't know. Does she count on the ratings? Because if she does, we'll have her listening. She on the book.
If my wife's probably listening, so
Yeah,
if she's
of course
around,
she
she
is.
hears it.
Hi, Melissa. So we are back talking Raider football. We had in the first hour, a busy first hour. Of course, Carla Welga's here, as we talked about. Big Raiders fan, meteorologist. She explained that monsoons aren't storms. It's just monsoon season. So we're learning. It's awesome. But more than anything, she's here talking Raiders. She's got her Raider gear. If you want to watch us, you can stream us on YouTube, Facebook, and Periscope and Twitch. You know, the gaming thing. I'm not a gamer. Like, I don't play video games. I guess I missed that. I'm just a little too old. My son, though, my 17-year-old, holy moly, comes in 1 a.m. last night. Comes in my bedroom. I'm pretty much asleep. Could you put on, because I can control the Wi-Fi, so I turn off the Xbox Wi-Fi so he can't play. Can you turn it on? I'm like, 1 o'clock in the morning, get to bed. Come on, man. You got to work tomorrow. So anyway, but we are back. Lee Hamilton was on earlier talking about relocation, and we learned a lot about Carla's fandom of the Oakland Raiders. But now we're going to jump in. Speaking of fandom and the Raiders, man, I'll tell you, we talked about this, Matt, on the podcast a little bit this week, and that is, you know, when your team leaves, you're upset, and things happen. You get that. But what we're seeing in Oakland is the continued, and I call it tinfoil hat folks. We have a couple people up there, and one in particular that we talked about. We're not going to name them because we don't want to give them any coverage. But these people continue to peddle in false hope and in negativity around the stadium.
I don't even know if it's hope anymore.
It's not. Well, what do you call it? Just lying?
Yeah, I think it's just this narrative that they just want to be negative. They're trying to be as negative as possible because whether or not it's bitterness, jealousy, or just a bunch of look at me moments, it's nonsense really, because I don't think there's any feasible way that at this point you could believe any of the rhetoric coming from any of these knuckleheads. No,
and the thing is, the last salvo was a gentleman saying that the stadium will be done 2 years later than the team is claiming. So they're saying 2022 because it's amazing, Carlos. So this guy did math, okay? And
is that what you call that?
Yeah, it's funny math. It's almost like government math. There was an interview with Don Webb, who heads the stadium project. He said the stadium was 15% done. For those of us who drive by it all the time, they're just jamming on the thing.
Yeah,
they're progressing.
true statement.
And so he said 15% done. So this guy who honestly, if I could reach out to his family and tell them that he needs professional help, said because he said it's 15%, he was doing a timeline. Said, well, if we're only 15% now, that means there's no way they can make 2020. Not realizing that you increase the number of workers, that you increase the
well, and
the
different things take a different amount of time.
Exactly.
Not everything is exactly, laying the foundation may take longer than anything else. I'm not an expert in construction, but doesn't seem like it wouldn't take a rocket scientist.
Yeah, it seems pretty easy to
Straightforward.
figure out, right?
Yeah.
This isn't rocket science. You're not splitting atoms here. It's some things take longer. I told Scott on our podcast earlier this week, so when you get dressed, it's a lot quicker putting on your shirt than putting on and tying your shoes.
Correct.
You don't base the amount of time it takes you to get ready because of how long it takes you to tie your shoes. Like, it's just it's so ridiculous that this is the conclusion that he came to based on whatever ridiculous numbers he came up with.
No, and that's the thing to me. It's look, again, be upset at the ownership and all that stuff. I get it. But to go out and claim that everyone is lying. So everybody in Las Vegas, everybody with the team, the NFL, the county, everybody's lying except for this one person.
If you're going to say something smart. I remember the mayor.
Next time he says something smart will be the first time.
The mayor of Oakland saying the city of Las Vegas doesn't have the resources to build or support a team. And I thought to myself, have you been here?
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
look at the Strip. We don't have the resources to build
right.
in this city.
Things
There's
go
new
up.
building every day.
Right, exactly. So if you're going to present an argument, fine, but think
Right.
about what you're going to say.
Maybe make it fact-based.
Well, remember, this is the city where people have to pay $35 for a resort fee and $35 for parking. We have plenty of resources.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Not saying that people like that. But the larger question just becomes, though, that, when is that damaging to people? Because if you're a fan and you've given up on a team because they're leaving, and there's a lot of Oakland fans who've done that. They've said, look, I'm done. You've left me twice. And I get that, all right? And it's their prerogative, and I don't fault them for it. Most Raider fans will like the Raiders if they were playing in Haiti. I mean, it wouldn't matter. They would still be
Like Lee said, on the moon.
on the moon. Exactly.
Right, yeah.
They would still be Raider fans, right? And I'm sure your dad and you are the same way, Carla. But to really, again, the difference I've seen in the relocation of San Diego to L.A. and Oakland to Las Vegas is the hate on the city of Las Vegas. Our city, Carla, you've been here, 5 years or so?
3.
Oh, 3.
Yeah,
3.
just over 3.
Oh, just over 3. So you're relatively new to the
Yes.
area. So is half the population, by the way. But don't you find when you talk to people, there's such a misunderstanding of what it's like, especially when you live here?
Oh, completely. I remember when the station first approached me a few years ago about coming to Las Vegas, I had the same reaction as I think so many people saying, Las Vegas, what am I going to do in Las Vegas? You know, everybody thinks we all live on the Strip and we all work in casinos. And but then you come down here, you look around, and it's just a normal community.
Yes.
And I think even now, I think with the Golden Knights, now we're even more of a tight-knit community. It really brought us together, unfortunately, following tragedy. But it's a community. It's a great community. It's a well-working community. I love the city in that it's so organized. It's laid out so well. It's just, I feel, in my opinion, it's run well.
Yeah, and you know what, too, Carla, is people don't understand, too. I mean, you saw what happened with hockey, as you just mentioned. The NFL is the largest and biggest and most successful entertainment marketing machines there is in sports. It just is, right? You could talk about World Cup, and there's a guy that does national radio for CBS that was on earlier on this station talking about how soccer is going to overtake everything in the country. I don't believe so. I think soccer's growing. It might overtake baseball.
No way. Not a chance.
But at the same time, NFL is so encompassing and so overwhelming when they come into a market. And we're seeing that a little bit with the Raiders and what they're doing in the community, which you'll hear from David here in a few minutes. But that in itself, too, is going to be a unifying force in the community. And I think that the people outside, I always joke, I used to travel a lot on business, and people would say, oh, man, you live in how did you meet your wife in Las Vegas? And I would say, oh, she was dancing on this pole, as a joke, because they all think
But that's a stereotype.
That's
What everybody
Right.
assumes.
Right.
Yeah, there's no other way to meet somebody, apparently.
And if you read the stories about relocation to Las Vegas, it's all, well, they'll be next to a strip joint or they'll be next to a casino. It's like, we have schools, we have churches, we have amazing cultural events, we have the Smith Center, all these different things which make Las Vegas a great area. That's not to put down other areas.
No.
Okay? The Bay Area has beautiful, it's too expensive for my taste, but has beautiful pieces of it. San Francisco is one of the most beautiful cities as long as you're not walking around homeless people.
Vegas is a giant suburb. It's a giant suburb.
That's a
We
good
don't
way to
really
put
have
it.
city living here. It's not like we have Manhattan high-rises or San Francisco or anything like that. Every neighborhood here is spread out. It's all homes. You do have apartment complexes, but they're, 2 stories tall? I mean, it's not like you have these high-rises. They're all spread out over huge acreage. It is a giant suburb. Malls, strip malls, grocery stores, shops. I mean, that's what Vegas is. And then you have this street that runs down the middle of it where some of the most famous hotels and casinos on the planet reside.
That's right. Which most people don't understand that the Las Vegas Boulevard, the Strip, is not in the city of Las Vegas. But that's a whole different story for another time. But Carla, you said now that your husband is a Dolphins fan.
He is.
Now, are you going to convert him?
I'm not going to try.
No?
Because if he tried to convert me, he would have no success. So.
Yeah, but now you're the boss. So, again, I've been married 22 years. I know who the boss is. So, over a while, what's going to happen, though, is the Dolphins are going to continue to be bad. And the Raiders are going to be good. So, he'll come over.
Especially when they get here.
I think we'll definitely cheer for each other's team as long as, of course, we're not playing each other.
Correct.
I will support the Dolphins, if they're playing somebody else, especially if they're playing the Patriots. In fact, we're looking at the game in September.
Yes.
So we might be going down there for
nice.
that game. Yeah, we're looking at rates and everything. But, yeah, he grew up in Florida.
Okay.
Around the Orlando area. So
it was all Dolphins. Yeah, that's – well, I still think, he'll gravitate as the Raiders get better. And John Gruden is so appealing.
Yeah.
If you're a guy, especially.
Because he's infectious.
He's just that, like –
He's
almost
intense.
He's intense and like a life coach almost. He's talking to players, and you think he's talking to you. He's like, oh my God, I'm going to get out of bed and work out today better than I did yesterday because John Gruden's yelling at people.
Yeah, that's Chucky. It's Chucky, man. I can't believe he's back. It's going to be great.
Well, and the difference is that he has more of an opportunity to embrace the Raiders because they will be here.
That's true.
So
that's the thing too. People always ask about, well, if you're not a Raider, and I tell the story the last couple shows about a neighbor who said, I'll support the Giants fan. I'll support the Raiders when they're here because it's Las Vegas. So I think you're going to see a lot of people in Las Vegas support the home team. We're going to step aside. When we come back from the break, we will hear from David Stepanian about the Raiders' big donation to Veterans Village. You're listening to Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m.
This is Cliff Branch, formerly of the Oakland Raiders, 3-time Super Bowl champ, 4-time Pro Bowl, and you'll listen to the Silver and Black Show.
Number 21, bringing us back in again. You are listening to Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio 1140. This is Scott Branson, joined by my co-host, as always, Matt Gutierrez, and our special co-host, Carla Whalegap, who's here as well. Yes. And we were talking earlier about the Raiders in the community, and the Raiders in Las Vegas have really established themselves already. They might not be here for 2 seasons, but they are here with a huge presence already. In addition to their sales center, of course, with tickets and retail stores, they have been actively involved with schools and charities of all types, including the Discovery Children's Museum and others. And one of the other charities that they've really gotten on board with, and I love because I appreciate our veterans so much, is Veterans Village downtown. And Veterans Village, if you remember, Matt, we went out to, in May, the Celebrity Swing event at Topgolf for the Raiders, where we got to interview Tim Brown, and you got to see Charles Woodson tee off. You were there the other night, Carla, right? You were at Topgolf?
I was so bad at golf, but it was fun. I was there with friends, and I did what I could.
Now imagine hanging out there with Howie Long and Tim Brown and all these guys. So we were there, and the whole point of it, they let the media come in for an hour, and then they kicked us out. But
quite literally,
yeah, they did. They kicked us out. Well, at least most of us. But they did a big fundraiser there, and the result of that is what we saw happen this week on Wednesday in Las Vegas. And our own David Stepanian, who is our in the field correspondent, was out there. So we're going to play a story that he did on the Raiders Day out there and the big donation. So here's David Stepanian with the Raiders in the community at Veterans Village.
When you make a commitment to excellence, you do it for both on the field and off. The Raiders Foundation donated $150,000 to Veterans Village, a local organization in Las Vegas that helps veterans in need. The Raiders Foundation held an event at Veterans Village to provide vets with container homes. Willie Hill was one of the vets set to receive a home.
To me, first, the container homes is awesome. It's a great thing to get. You know, it's self-contained, it's nice. We're working hard, to fight this homelessness amongst the veterans. A lot of the veterans here are homeless. And for the organization here coming to Vegas, I think it's setting Vegas on fire. Come on, man, this is Vegas. You know they love football here. Come on, they love it. And everybody's excited about the Raiders coming. And then with the Knights winning like they winning, there's a lot of heat on the Raiders, Bubba. They got them right away, right? I think they're going to do great, man.
Veterans Village founder Arnold Stock is a lifelong Raiders fan and was thrilled to hear the team wanted to partner with his organization to help build container homes for local vets.
It was incredible because I first sat down with a gentleman from the Raiders, and he says, "What do you need?" And I just threw it out there, and that's what we do a lot because that's our vision. You throw your vision out there, and somebody says, "Hey, let's talk more." But when we got that phone call, it's sort of surreal to know that it's actually happening.
The event was complete with a barbecue held for the veterans, and the Raiderettes were joined by team president Mark Bedane to present the check.
We've done a lot of support in the Bay Area over the years with military groups. We've been able to establish some great ones here, and you heard them mention the event we had out at Nellis. And this was just a natural fit for us. And Mark was extremely supportive and extremely excited about it and had a great time at the event. And I think he'll be more actively involved in a lot of things that we do here with Arnie.
The Raiders continue their involvement in helping the Las Vegas community. To find out more about Veterans Village, head to vvlv.com. For Silver and Black Today, I'm David Stepanian.
All right, David Stepanian. David, man, thank you. What a great little story. And guys, again, the Raiders, I know it sounds like it's just promotional, but they really are putting their money where their mouth is when it comes to being involved in the local community.
When I'm out there talking to fans, this is one of the things that the message I try to get across to a lot of them, because there's still that built-in hate with the Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
You either love them or hate them. And for those that didn't grow up, wearing the silver and black, they absolutely hate the Raiders because of their allegiances with other teams. And they want to be excited about the NFL coming, but because it's the Raiders and there's so much venom thrown that way, they hate on the fans, they hate on the team. They talk about how poor it's going to be for the city, all the negativity that's going to come in. And then you see things like this where they get out there and they host a Topgolf event. and raise $150,000, and then actually threw another $25,000 of their own money on top of that, so that Veterans Village could hit their mark. And talking to Willie Hill, which was the veteran in that piece, talking to him about the container home, and we actually spent a little time with him in a model that they had there, and just the excitement level that he had growing up in Texas. Actually, he was a Cowboys fan, and I asked him, I said, "Are you moving over to the dark side?" He said, "How can I not, man? I mean, this organization has done so much already. They're already part of this community." And he just loves what they stand for. And these are the kinds of things that people don't quite understand when you get an NFL franchise here. There is so much money behind an NFL franchise. They have, and not to act like these guys don't work hard, but they have a lot of downtime. This isn't a 162 MLB schedule or an 82 NBA or NHL schedule. This is a 16-game a season schedule. And that's it. I mean, there's a lot of time for these guys to get out there and ingrain themselves into a community. And the Raiders do it as well, if not better, than anybody else.
Now, Carla, with your role in your role in television, you were around a lot of charitable causes. You did a lot on your own with the station. The Raiders really, I mean, there's a lot of great folks in town who do amazing work, giving money to charity, the charities themselves. But I am struck by how much the Raiders have done so far in advance.
Right. Schools, they did the ongoing thing at the Discovery Museum. But this veteran, when I was just mentioning to you, near and dear to my heart, my husband is a veteran. And he was in the Air Force for 12 years. And that piece made me tear up. But, yeah, there's so much that they're doing with kids, with our military, which is important to me and I know to a lot of people. So definitely admirable and important because so many people look up to them. And so they have to set an example, especially for our young people. That they have. I feel like right now we have them looking up to people that are just, reality TV, even entertainers that, wow.
Yeah, it's not exactly who you want your kids to model.
Famous for being famous as opposed to doing something positive.
Right, right. And the Raiders have a history of this, right? If you go back to the things they've done in Oakland, and they still, by the way, continue to do charity work in Oakland. They're there 2 more years,
right? And
they're doing the same thing there, and it's been a hallmark of what Al Davis did with the team and what his son and the rest of the organization, including Mark Bedane, continue to do. But to me, that is huge because what does an NFL team bring to your community? The NFL team brings entertainment, it brings sports, it brings a new stadium and jobs. But at the end of the day, if they're not going to be an active member of your community, then they're sort of absent. And I don't think that this is something that's happening because we're seeing it happen right before our eyes.
And up until the Golden Knights got here and now the Raiders coming in, what has this city had to this extent as far as charitable work and people getting out into the community and doing these kinds of things? Not that we haven't had those things here, but to this extent. I mean, the Raiders host one event and $175,000 goes to Veterans Village. I mean, just like that, they make that kind of contribution. We mentioned the Goody Two Shoes on the show several times. You talked about Discovery Children's Museum, just all of the different things that they've already done. They're 2 years away from coming to this city, and we've already seen this kind of work done in the community. It's impressive, and it's only the beginning.
Well, and not that it's a competition between pro franchises, but I will say, and the Golden Knights have done great things too, but the Raiders are right there. And again, to your point, Matt, they're not even here yet, technically, and they're already doing this thing. And I just think that we'll see that happen. We'll see more of it happen. We'll see them ingrained in the community as we do the NFL teams all over the country. But it's a special thing, and I think to Carla's point about veterans too, the Raiders, we went out. It was so cool, Carla. We got to go out for the NFL draft. They were at Nellis Air Force Base in the Thunderbird hangar. So we got to hang out with, by the way, all the Thunderbird people, men, women, even the crew, they have like 0% body fat. These uniforms that they have to wear, they're like, it's like a stiff board, these uniforms. Amazing people. But it was cool to see out there the Raiders' commitment to the military. And people don't think about Vegas as being a military town, but it is.
It is.
It is. Because of the Air Force, Nellis has been here forever. Not only that, but we get a lot of retired military in Las Vegas and in Nevada. So that's a big deal. So their closeness with the military, they did it up north too because of the Bay Area's significant military presence as well. But I agree. I like the kids stuff. I think the school stuff is going to be big for them.
Yeah, really important.
My grandfather, born and raised here, was an Air Force, retired in Vegas from the Air Force. My other grandfather wasn't born in Vegas, but was an Army guy, retired here in Vegas.
Yep.
I mean, it's very there's a big military tie here in the city. And you have Nellis Air Force Base here.
That's
on
right.
any given day, you see them out there running drills in the sky. Pretty impressive stuff.
That's right, and so many great organizations. I am a member of the Sons of the American Legion. I did not serve, but my grandfather served valiantly in World War II, so I get to enjoy that. So I'm around those guys, and they're fantastic, and I know the Raiders are going to be doing that, doing more with them as well. Well, we're going to get ready in a minute here for a break, but when we come back, we're going to talk something interesting, guys. We're going to talk about flag football. Now, some people out there might say, Raiders football, flag football. Well, if you listened to our show a few weeks ago, we had one of the leading researchers on CTE talk to us, Dr. Michael Olasko from Boston University. More and more kids are starting to delay their play and tackle football for safety reasons, which is fine. And one of the reasons is because of the growth of flag football. Now there's a flag football professional league. If you've been watching any NFL network over the past few weeks, you've seen that live there as well. And we're going to talk to the CEO of the American Flag Football League, Jeff Lewis, when we come back. All right, let's pay some bills. When we come back, we will talk to Jeff Lewis here on Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m.
Sports Radio. Help us talk the Silver and Black. Call us at 702-889-5978. Here's Matt Gutierrez and your host, Scott Gulbranson, on CBS Sports Radio 1140 AM.
Welcome back, everybody, to Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio 1140. And it might be July, and we're talking about the countdown to camp starting in 11 days, but there has been football during the summer, folks. And we're going to head out on our Newsmaker line to talk flag football. Yes, flag football, and specifically the American Flag Football League. The AFFL is a blast if you haven't seen it. And their ultimate final will be played on Thursday, this Thursday, July 19th at 8 p.m. on the NFL Network at BBVA Compass Stadium. That's the stadium in Houston. And it's a $1 million winner-take-all championship. And the teams, it's pros versus Joes. I love this, by the way. The pro teams will match up. They matched up last night. We'll get some results here. But guys like Chad Ochocinco, Jared Johnson, and other athletes, Seneca Wallace, actually, which we have a story about him. We'll talk about that. Javid Best, Jason Avant, Jacoby Jones. All these guys playing flag football, just fantastic stuff. And joining us now is the AFFL CEO, Jeff Lewis. Jeff, welcome to the Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio.
Thanks a lot for having me. Good morning.
All right. Well, listen, I've been watching, and I was fascinated by it. And I'll admit to you, I came across it by accident. And then I had somebody who actually works with you guys that went to college with me reached out and said, hey, have you seen what we're doing? And so I started to look more into it, and I was fascinated by it. And one of the reasons was, which we'll get to in a moment, was because we just talked with the gentleman from Boston University about CTE and injuries for younger kids, especially playing football. And so flag football, it's a growing sport. Tell us how you got involved with flag football, the growth of the sport, and how it came to be that you found, hey, we're going to do a league.
Yeah, I mean, the basic idea was that I was out on the field about 5 years ago with my son, and the last play of one of his games was pretty compelling. You know, a very spectacular diving flagpole at the 1-inch line for us to lose the game. And I'm a pretty competitive guy, but instead of being annoyed, I was actually kind of energized because it was one of the coolest things I'd ever seen. And anybody that has kids and has watched a lot of third-grade athletics know it's not usually compelling. So it kind of made me say to myself, I wonder what this game would look like played by great players rather than kids. And a couple of years later, I decided to take a shot at seeing what that would look like.
Now, and you do have, I mean, it's amazing. If you look at the rules, 7-on-7, 12-person roster, 60-minute game. So you have 2 30-minute halves, a running clock, and divided. You have no blocking, kicking, or fumbles, 1 lateral per play. And watching, I mean, there's guys like Michael Vick are playing in your games, and the way you're presenting it from a television perspective is really, to me, fan-friendly. You kind of go from an end-zone shot versus sideline shots so people can see. So talk about the brand and kind of building that. So you saw, you watching your kids play, that, oh, boy, this could be a really nice game if we took some athletes, both from an amateur perspective and from a pro perspective as well, and put them into the mix. But the concept and the brand, and then getting the NFL involved, how did that all come to be?
Well, first of all, to talk a little bit about the way we're presenting it, you know, that the end zone view. We call it the Madden view. If you see a lot of the comments, in the social media conversations that kind of refer to the fact that it feels like you're watching a video game. But if you think about, there's a whole generation of kids who have now grown up to be young adult football fans who really spent more time playing Madden when they were kids than watching actual football games.
Good point.
And what that does is it actually makes you kind of an expert in football. It makes you understand formations. It makes you understand coverages. It makes you think strategically about decision making. And I feel like that when you're really a fan who's really deeply into football, it's a lot of what makes it so cool is all the strategy, is all the choices that the coaches make, that the players make, and you can't really see the.
Oh, Jeff.
Oh,
there you are. Okay.
You know, you see all that, and so we think it's just kind of like it's really like the decision maker's view of a game if you think about it. And every kid who's ever played on a high school team, a college team, even a pro team, when you watch film, what direction do you watch the game from? You watch it from that zone view. So I think it's really kind of the sophisticated way of watching, and people seem to really be enjoying it.
Hey, Jeff, Matt Gutierrez here. An ACL tear and 4 meniscus tears later, I've long since retired from playing flag football, but I'm very curious about the rosters you guys have and how you went about putting those together. Did guys like Michael Vick and Ocho Cinco, did they approach you, or did you guys reach out to them and try to see if they were interested in this kind of thing?
Yeah. So a year ago out in San Jose, we played a pilot game at Avaya Stadium, and Michael was the first player to agree to play, and that was a huge thing for us because, when getting other players to play, when the first thing you tell them is, hey, Mike Vick is playing, that sure makes your job a lot easier. And obviously, Michael's kind of he's the prototype player for probably almost any form of anything. Yeah. But for flag football, you couldn't come up with anything better. Somebody who could throw on the run, throw accurately, and also, be a very dangerous runner. Kind of the perfect flag football quarterback. And if you look at the way, frankly, that Seneca Wallace is playing, stylistically, you'd have to say it's a lot like, the way you would expect Mike to play in his prime. So, that's a huge thing. But basically, when you talk to all these players, they still love the game. They want to compete. And if you talk to any ex-athlete in any sport, they always talk about how they miss having a team, having teammates, having that camaraderie, and having that mission. And so it's not hard to get guys to play at all. The only thing that comes up sometimes is guys say, "Oh man, I would love to play, but I've kind of gotten out of shape." And one of our really strong considerations here is we want our guys to be in game shape. When you look at Jason Avant, when you look at Forsett,